and it was a total resolution. Hearing it all and having you here was like music to my ears, more like a symphony. I'd like to tell you what it means to me personally, deeply, because my grandfather was a resident of Market Street, Chinatown, and was made refugee by the fire, and my father was born in the new Chinatown of Heinleinville. My grandfather, Hua Guok, came to San Jose as an 11-year-old boy named Yong Hua Guok to work in Chinatown. His uncle had returned to the village called Lungtan, which was Dragon's platform for a sojourn, and was preparing to go back to California, Gumsan Gold Mountain. To the Chinese, it was no longer gold that was the draw, but good wages in Gumsan. Hua Guok begged his mother and father to allow him to go to America. He would work hard and send home his wages. Reluctant, they let him go. His mother rushed to sew work clothes for him. Hua Guok and his uncle sailed from Hong Kong, arriving 6 weeks later in San Francisco, and taking the train over tracks laid by Chinese to one of the largest Chinatowns in California at the time. The Chinatown was known as the Plaza Chinatown because it was so centrally located, as you can see, close to the downtown plaza. There were more than a dozen grocery stores, a fish market, 3 restaurants, merchandising stores, shops with gambling rooms, shops making clothes and shoes, and a large theater where operas were performed by traveling troops. It was a vibrant, bustling place. Coming from a village in southern China to San Jose's biggest Chinatown, Hua Guok was in awe. And the food, it was so abundant. The produce, wintermelon, green beans, bok choy, all grown by his kinsmen, and the fruits, he had never seen peaches so large, and he tasted strawberries for the first time. Chinese were indispensable to the gentrified life of San Jose. They were domestic servants, gardeners, laundrymen, cooks. At the age of 12, Hua Guok was a houseboy for a white family who were kindly to him. But working outside of Chinatown had its perils. One time a group of young toughs set upon him throwing rocks. He ran as fast as he could to safety, but what hurt him most was that he lost his hat. In the next few years, Market Street Chinatown was hurting. Harassment of Chinese intensified with more ordinances, more restrictions, and no new workers coming into the valley. In 1885, Chinese were violently expelled from Eureka, and then there was a massacre of dozens of Chinese miners in Rock Springs, Wyoming. And later, Chinese were brutally driven out of Tacoma, Washington in a storm, and their homes and businesses burned. This was followed in Seattle by a massive anti-Chinese riot. The Chinese in San Jose heard horrific accounts from their Seattle kinsfolk who fled to San Francisco. Was it going to happen here? Not if, but when. In the afternoon of May 4th, 1887, as a teenager, Hua Guok was working in the strawberry fields, and he could see the smoke from the fire of Chinatown. By the time he and his friends rushed back to home base, the Chinatown was an inferno, the hottest fire San Jose had ever seen. The Chinese fire brigade tried valiantly to put out the fire. The San Jose firemen fighting the blaze reported there was poor hose, meaning they couldn't get any water. The water tank was usually full, was nearly empty. Now the San Jose newspapers gave vivid reports a day later. The Mercury, the San Jose Daily Herald of May 5th, reported how Chinese were rescuing their precious possessions, including pets, dogs and cats. This is a quote, "Careful aid being given by the owners of the pets, who seemed to be so as solicitous for the safety of these creatures as for their own. Considerable amusement occurred when the Chinese were rescuing their Joss, their statue, from the flames. It took a brave and hard fight to do it, and when they came out panting and singed with soap, they're soaked and scorched and bedraggled God, there was a shout from the spectators." The San Jose Daily Herald announced, On May 5th, Chinatown is dead. It is dead forever. But the Chinese would not be driven out because 10 days after the fire, 11 Chinese merchants signed a lease agreement with John Heinlein to build a new Chinatown on his pasture land. Each merchant putting down $300. The city was in furious opposition. The Heinleins and his 2 sons and 2 daughters who carried on his work were harassed and vilified. But they and the Chinese overcame every barrier that the city put up to wipe the Chinatown off the map. In 1888, Chinese had not one Chinatown, but 2, the Woolen Mills Chinatown and Heinleinville. Of all places where the Chinese were driven out and their homes torched, San Jose was the only city where the Chinese had a second chance and a Chinatown built for them that would endure. My grandfather returned to San Jose and brought his family to a safe, comfortable community. This fine new Chinatown was protected by an 8-foot-high fence. My father was born in a store in Chinatown, Heinleinville, and had the happiest of childhoods. He told me workers came in from all over the valley on the Lunar New Year, Da Ju, Moon Festival, and gave him lots of red envelopes. Heinleinville carried on the same wonderful traditions as in the Market Street Chinatown. After 44 years, though, the longest of any of the Chinatowns in San Jose, Heinleinville ended during the Depression, defeated finally by the Chinese exclusion law. But a generation of children grew up in the Chinatown as Americans. That's how I'm here. My father, John C. Young, became a community leader in San Francisco, founder of the Chinese New Year Parade, where he got his ideas from Heinleinville, and was colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve. When people asked him, "Where did you come from? Where are you from, really?" he'd answer proudly, "San Jose, born and bred." Where is the Chinatown legacy now? There's a plaque in front of the Fairmont, placed there by Asian Americans for Community Involvement and the Association of Ethnic Chinese on the 100th anniversary of the burning of the Market Street Chinatown. The remains of the Market Street Chinatown are not lost or buried. They were brought by CHCP, led by Lillian Wang Gai, to Professor Barbara Boss of the Archaeology Department of Stanford University. They continue to study and learn from the burned artifacts. The heat of the fire has been determined that it could only be arson. In the near future, you can visit San Jose's newest park called Heinleinville Park. It is inside the development that's in progress, the development that you can see in progress, called 6th and Jackson Street, the site of Heinleinville Chinatown, which is now Japantown. John Heinlein also leased land to the Japanese, and Filipinos also came here later. So it became an Asian American community. Japantown now is a vibrant, multicultural neighborhood of San Jose, open to everybody and welcoming everyone. At Heinleinville Park, there will be a children's playground, a sculpture that symbolizes the struggles and triumphs of the people who live there, and a history pathway. I imagine that the Chinatown Market Street fire will be the first stepping stone. As out of the ashes rose a new community that would not be driven out. It was an end, but a beginning. On behalf of those who fought the good fight and continue to do so, I'd like to say to the city of San Jose, apology accepted and resolution embraced. Thank you.